Dragon Fair by Whitney Avalon. Once, in the kingdom of Nadeso, a king and queen had one son and 5 daughters. As tradition dictated, the king trained Prince Dito in all he would need to know in order to succeed as monarch someday, and left the princesses to the queen's care. They were taught poise, charm, contortion, and obedience, so as to better please their future husbands. They were displayed to visitors like rare prized animals, enveloped in magnificent dresses, the voluminous, lavish fabric showing the royal family's unimaginable wealth. One evening, when their youngest, Riliana, was 16, her parents came to talk to her. Riliana had not seen her father informally for years, so she sat up straight against her carved headboard, glad for once that her handmaidens always made sure her hair was elaborately braided and her lips tinted with a mercuric mixture, even before bed. The candles flickered as if mirroring her excitement. The king and queen explained that in order to keep peace with the neighboring kingdom, they would have to give Riliana up. She nodded, careful not to show any emotion. After all, she had long since understood the importance of arranged marriages, and her 4 sisters had already been shipped off to faraway lands to wed princes there. Though not excited about leaving the only home she had ever known, Riliana was practical and ready to see more of the world. "May I ask to whom I shall be wed?" she said quietly, her nighttime bodice keeping her voice and her waist appropriately small. She knew that stays should be comfortable, had seen laundry washers and cooks with full movement in theirs, but her parents' orders had always been to lace Riliana's so tightly. The king and queen glanced at each other uneasily, faces shadowy in the shifting candlelight. "Alas, child, it is not to be like that. You will be Dragon Fair." When Riliana awoke after fainting, a dozen handmaidens were tending to her, but her parents were nowhere to be seen. Shackled by one wrist to an enormous rock near the ocean, Riliana awaited the dragons. Afraid to see them coming, she instead gazed down at her shoes, lovely silk slippers with pointed toes that her ladies-in-waiting had insisted she wear, just as though it were a normal day. Waves crashed forward, unceasing, like time itself. Her structured gown made her curves appear even more stunning. Her priceless jewels gleamed in the sunshine. Her delicate skin radiated youth and innocence, all as befitted a princess. "I am sure no man could resist me," Riliana thought. But obviously the approaching group would not be men, not even human at all. And truly, she admitted to herself, her toes hurt. They had always hurt, but if ever there were an occasion that she did not need pointy shoes, it was right now. She slipped them off and let her pampered feet feel the roughness of the stone and the cool drops of sea spray. The air smelled of salt and inevitability. How brutal. All these curious new sensations she tried and failed to savor. She had done everything right. She looked perfect. Still, she had been sacrificed. She peered up at the sky, terrified she would see rabid dragons already nearby, but there were only a few wispy clouds in the blinding blue. Riliana closed her eyes and let the warmth sink in. The pale princess who had never been allowed outside the castle, for her own safety, of course, never played in the sun. No one was going to save her. The deal had been made. She was a glorious flower, painstakingly gardened for 16 years, only to be set on fire. Riliana's breath became even shallower than usual as the fear hit her. She did not want to die. She had barely gotten to live. She ripped at her heavy skirt. So much meticulously dyed purple fabric, so many hours of hand embroidery, all by women she had never met. She pulled at the oversized gilded sleeves, the knotted lacing, the stiff and prickly ruffled collar, trying to give herself air. When at last she had clawed her way out of the dress like a mollusk from an outgrown shell, she collapsed onto the rock, alone, tiny against the cruelty of expectations, gasping. She missed her sisters, suddenly and sharply. Then she realized. She looked down at her left wrist, and while it was sore and scraped, in the rush of emotion she had managed to slip it from the restraint. All that contortion and flexibility training must have paid off. With a euphoric, un-princess-like grin, Riliana took a huge breath and howled with joy, full voice, louder than she ever had in her whole life. And for a moment, the waves stood still. The Queen stared blankly into the looking glass, a numb chasm in her ribs, wondering what to do with her days now that her daughters were all, in their various ways, gone. Abruptly, without warning or wind, every lamp and candle in the room simultaneously went out, as her handmaidens yelped and then scurried to relight them, snickering at each other's surprise. A whisper left the Queen's lips, full of loss, regret, and somehow hope. Riliana. But no one heard. And by the time all was illuminated again, the Queen was her usual impenetrable self, critiquing an intricate custom gown that had arrived earlier that day for her, inlaid with pearls even paler than she. Zis, Skaza, and Iska landed by Alliance Rock, tons of lithe, scaly gold and maroon touching down almost silently, all muscle and grace. The dragons were breathtakingly impressive, even if you were, say, furlongs away in your white silk shift, hiding in a tree's dense greenery. "See, nobody here," said Zis. "My vision is flawless, even from the air." With disdain masked by the crashing of the waves, Skaza mumbled, "Not quite flawless when I hunted Seven Coloth in the time you found one last full moon." Iska giggled and stepped away around the rock, as Zis twisted impossibly quickly to land snout to snout with Skaza. "Care to challenge me?" Skaza met her gaze, unmoving and unblinking. "Found these near the cuff!" cried Iska, returning with two soggy violet shoes in the palm of her massive claw. The others turned, breaking their standoff, and leaned in close to the minuscule footwear. "Mayhap someone else snatched her up first," mused Skaza. "Mayhap they broke their word about offering her," scoffed Zis. "Ooh, look, a message," said Iska, and indeed there seemed to be words on one shoe's decorative ribbon, as if scraped in using a sharp stone or shell. "Do not tell King, will make worth your while," they eventually deciphered, after which Iska carefully placed the shoes within the soft sculpted leather pouch on her back, in which she had planned to carry the princess. "A dramatic twist," said Skaza with the tenor of one who adores drama. "I have opinions to share with the council about our wisest course forward," said Zis. "Strong opinions." Skaza feigned surprise, her features approximating the world's largest sarcastic mother-in-law. "I was very much looking forward to meeting her," said Iska sincerely. "I heard her posture is dazzling." A few decades later, King Dito, whose father had indeed trained him well, was informed about an outlaw nation to the south, led by, improbably, a woman on her own. It was said they spent their days cultivating the land, sunning themselves, dancing barefoot, and singing till the very air glittered with their magic. Oddly, even the dragons did not interfere. The king rubbed his aching forehead, just below the ornate, weighty crown he'd once loved showing off, but now perpetually stressed by interkingdom politics and the endless needs of his people. There were rumors his most trusted ambassador had gone missing, and reports that the mighty Zentrell River was at its lowest level in years. He had more pressing problems than a clan of heathens far away. There was a polite knock on the chamber door, and the king shouted, "Enter!" His daughter Clarissa did so, nervous to speak to the man whom she only ever heard yell, but determined to tell him she had made up her mind about her future. She clasped her hands together at her waist to hide their shaking, making sure not to cover the liquid teal gem in her new necklace. She had been secretly corresponding with a wise mentor offering a different path, and Clarissa was going to find a way to join her, no matter what anyone said. "Father," began his little daughter, perfect with her glossy lips and her small steps and her soothing voice. She would be a credit to him sometime soon, he thought. She would make a good bargaining chip with a neighboring king. In the Southlands, with sun-highlighted hair flowing in a comfortable breeze that seemed to always stay on her, stood a woman called Nefaria, who had long ago been known as Riliana. She stared into her scrying pool, through the necklace she had sent her niece, at the face of her brother Dito, which grew increasingly red as Clarissa bravely broke with tradition. The name was a bit ridiculous, Nefaria did admit, but it was nice controlling her own story and having an intimidating reputation to precede her. Sometimes others gave her exactly what she asked for before she did any arguing or enchantment at all to convince them. It saved so much time. She pictured future generations of bards telling stories about the inherent evil and bad influence of a loud, rebellious sorceress, never knowing her history. Nefaria breathed easy and laughed and laughed and laughed. The end. For now.